Hi everybody, this is Justina with JustynaTHandMade. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through how to create this woven fabric version of the JT Basic Zipper Pouch number 2. If you already have the pattern and you already sewn your pouch, that's gonna be just another free addition to your collection. With this video, you're gonna be able to create the pouch using only woven fabrics. The initial pattern was created using vinyl, and that video is already posted. Also, I added instructions on how to adapt the pattern to create the see-through vinyl version of the pouch. And now the third, and I think maybe final, way of putting the pouch together is creating it fully from woven fabrics. As you can see, there's no raw edges, and our project is also fully lined. I will walk you through in the next clip how to adapt the pattern to create your woven fabric front panel. It's really easy, straightforward. I just feel that a woven fabric version will give you endless possibilities because there's so many beautiful prints that are accessible to anybody, and anybody with a domestic sewing machine can sew with woven fabrics. So there's nothing that's in your way to be able to create this beautiful design for a pouch. This pattern is available in my Etsy store. I will post the link in the description of this video. If you already purchased this pattern, no additional purchase is necessary. You're going to be able to create all three versions of the pouch based on the initial pattern that you already have. I hope that you're gonna enjoy this video. If you do, please make sure to give the video a like, and if you are not yet a subscriber, make sure to subscribe. If you would like to support my channel, you can use the thanks option on YouTube, or you can make a purchase from my Etsy store. Every even smallest support is highly appreciated. I hope that the sewing projects that I create for you brings you as much pleasure as it gives me to share it with you. And now, if you want to see how this fully woven fabric version of the pouch comes together, please keep watching. I'm gonna go through all the alterations you have to make to the initial pattern to create your woven version of the pouch. There's not many. You cut the lining panels exactly how they are in the initial pattern, and also the waterproof canvas panels, they are cut exactly the same. The only difference is with our main panel that initially would be cut out of vinyl, you're gonna use the pattern piece to cut the interfacing. So you wanna cut your interfacing using the provided pattern template, and based on that you're gonna cut the interfacing to size. When you have the interfacing cut, you're gonna fuse it to your fabric, to the wrong side of your fabric, and then you're gonna add a seam allowances on the bottom and on the top. The sides remain the same, so you're not adding any extra fabric on the sides. You're adding the fabric on the top edge, that's gonna be the top, and on the bottom, which that's gonna be our back side of our pouch. So that's the only difference that needs to be made if you are creating the pouch out of a woven fabric. I'm using Sew Fuse Plus. That's just my favorite interfacing. You can use Decovil Light, something that is a bit stiffer, so it's gonna give you a nice sharp edge specifically on the front side of your pouch. Then I have my regular supplies. So like I said, we have our lining panels, we have our top outer panels, I have my zipper and some rivets to attach my back tag, and I modified my zipper pull, just adding some wax cord to my pull. I just removed this second part of the dangle, so, and then I threaded my cord, so I'm gonna have a nice long pull for my zipper. Also, obviously, I'm gonna be using thread on my machine, and as always, I'm gonna be using Gutenberg Mera 70 thread. This is the thread of my choice. You can use other threads. I would just recommend using a nylon or polyester thread, so it can be melted and it's not gonna unravel when you have your finishing stitches. All right, so now that we have all our supplies and our cuts ready, we're gonna put some stuff on the side for now, so it's out of the way. And first, we're gonna work on our front panel. After you have it fused and cut, we want to create the finished top edge. My method would be with a thread and a quick running stitch, and then I'm gonna press the fold in place. So while I'm sewing, I'm gonna preheat my iron, and I have just a regular hand sewing needle and some thread, and I'm gonna create a running stitch on the unlined part of my panel. Make sure your thread is long enough to go all the way through. And now I'm gonna fold my fabric, pulling on the thread, and that hopefully gonna pull my fabric along my edge of the interfacing. As you can see, that was pretty easy and quick, and I'm really pleased with the outcome. The only thing is, I would also say not to use very stiff fabric on your main panel, so that's gonna help with the folding nice and flat. So now that we have that done, I'm not gonna bother removing the thread. It's totally fine being there. If it bothers you, you can just pull it out. Now that my panel is nicely pressed with my raw edge folded, I'm gonna take my template and refer back to it. So I wanna align it with the top and make my marks. So I'm gonna mark where the broken line is, the dotted line is. I'm not gonna do that on the bottom. Now, using double-sided tape, I'm gonna attach my outer top front panel along the curved edge. So take your waterproof canvas and making sure you are placing it right side down. So when you flip your project right side up, both of the fabrics will be right side up. flip it over to make sure everything looks nice and straight. And then you're gonna take the second outer panel and you're gonna align it with the straight edge of the accent panel and clip. And when you have your project prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna top stitch the rounded edge on top of your waterproof canvas panel with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. On the other side, you're gonna be sewing following the edge of your interfacing. Since we are adding 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, that's gonna be our seam allowance on the straight edge of your project, and we're going to be sewing with the 3.5 stitch length, and you want to make sure you back stitch on the beginning, on the end of all your seams. So take the project to the machine and connect the outer panels. Now that our panels are connected, we're gonna fold our straight edge panel. You want to make sure that the seam allowance is behind your waterproof canvas panel. You can finger press it or you can use iron to do so. And when you have that pressed, you're gonna take your project back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along this seam on the waterproof canvas side, and you're gonna be sewing with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. I top stitched the back outer panel and I also added my back tag. This is a good time to do so, especially if you have something that needs to be sewn onto your project. And now that we have that done, we're gonna work on our zipper. So first we're gonna square off a pair of ends. I like to use a lighter to do so, but you can just fold the corners, pin it and take it to the machine and base stitch it, whatever makes you more comfortable. When you have the zipper prepped, we're gonna attach it to the top edge of our outer panels. First, I'm gonna start with the front of my pouch, and I'm gonna leave about 3/4 of an inch on the left side. On the right side, I'm gonna mark 1 inch from the edge. And this is where I'm gonna slip my zipper. When I have the zipper attached to the first upper edge, I'm gonna now attach it to the lower edge, which it's the back of our pouch. So you want to fold the panel right sides together and just make sure your edges align. When everything looks nice and straight, you can now split your zipper. And now that we have the zipper attached to both of our top edges, we're gonna take the project to the machine and we're gonna base the zipper on with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. And we want to make sure that we are slipping the ends of the zipper, so we're not gonna sew all the way through. We're gonna slip the ends so they are not sewn in to the end. on both sides at the 1 inch mark. So take your project to the machine and baste your zipper tape onto your outer panel. Now that our zipper is attached, and like I said, I didn't sew it all the way through, now we're gonna attach our lining panels. So you're gonna take both lining panels and you're gonna align the long edges along the edges with the zipper, making sure that the fabrics are right sides together. Here you want to make sure your zipper tape is out of the way. And when you have your both panels prepped like this, so you have two linings attached to the outer panel, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew along those two edges with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length, making sure you are back stitching on the beginning and on the end of your seam. Now that your lining panels are attached, and once again I made sure that my zipper tails are not sewn in to the end of the edge. Now I'm gonna top stitch my zippers in place. To do so, I'm gonna fold my zipper and my seam allowances behind my main panel, but I want to keep the lining open. You can finger press it or you can use iron to set the fold in place. Just keep in mind, if you are using a leather or vinyl back tag, that you're not gonna iron through it because that may damage your back tag. And when you have your seam allowances pressed, you're gonna take the project back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch on the waterproof canvas side of your fabric, making sure that the seam allowances are folded underneath, and you're gonna be sewing all the way through, making sure you are keeping your zipper out of the way of the seam with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that we have our zipper top stitched, we're gonna work on putting our sides together. So the most important part is the top of our pouch. You want to make sure that your zippers align and your top seams align. Do the same on the tail end of your pouch. And now just continue clipping the outer panels together. Here you're gonna also clip the lining panels together. Here we're gonna mark our opening for our turning hole. And as you notice, I made sure I'm folding my zipper tails inside because I don't want them to be caught in a seam. And when I have everything clipped and pinned, as you can see, I'm gonna take my project to the machine and I'm gonna sew along those edges, making sure I'm back stitching especially well where my turning opening is. And I'm gonna be sewing on the outer panels with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. On my lining, I'm gonna increase the seam allowance to 1/2 inch, going from the top part of the pouch towards the bottom of the lining. I'm gonna be increasing my seam allowance to 1/2 inch and keep my 1/2 inch seam allowance on the bottom of my lining. So take your project to the machine, sew the sides, this part with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. On the lining, increase your seam allowance to 1/2 inch. Now that our sides and the bottom of our lining is sewn, I just have my opening left. I'm gonna now box my corners. I'm gonna make a 1/2 inch box corners on each side. You can increase it or decrease it, or even leave your pouch without box corners. Just have a flat pouch if that's something you want to do. But I'm gonna make my 1/2 inch box corners, and on the folded side I'm gonna measure from the seam line and from the fold. On the lining side, because I have seam allowances on both sides, I'm gonna measure from the seam allowances. Now I'm gonna cut the fabric. Now I'm gonna box my corners. You may want to create a crease on the bottom so you can see how to align your seams. Here you can butterfly your seam on the outers. And on the lining side, you can just fold the seams in the opposite direction. Just make sure you are folding the seam allowance on the bottom in the same direction. That's gonna make it easier to finish up our lining. And when you have all your corners clipped, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew all your corners with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length, making sure you are back stitching on the beginning and on the end of each seam. Now that your box corners are sewn, you can trim the seam allowance on the outers even more if you like. And now it's time to turn our project right side out. I like to butterfly my seam before I fold it over. You can use a clip to hold it in place. Give the project a once over to make sure everything is looking good. If everything is looking good, pull the lining out, pull on the opening that should fold the raw edges inside. And when you have your opening prepped like this, you're gonna take the project back to the machine and you're gonna sew along the opening with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or if you are confident, you can lower the seam allowance to 1/16 of an inch. Now that the lining is sewn close, we can place it back in our pouch. And now it's time to give our project a nice press. And now last step is to finish up our zipper. So first we want to put our zipper pull on. We want to make sure that our zipper aligns nicely. If you're happy how your zipper closes and it aligns nicely on the front, you are good to go. If you have to adjust it, just adjust the zipper pull a couple times. Take your time, do it as many times as you need to make sure that you're gonna be happy with the final look. This is better to just take your time now than just look at your pouch and being not happy with it for the rest of the life of the pouch. So now the really final step is just to attach our zipper end. I'm using a metal zipper end with a screw. I think I want to trim my zipper a little bit. I'm just gonna leave about an inch. You may want to just trim it a little more if you have a smaller zipper end. Fold it over. And your project is completed. The project is now completed, and now with the addition of this video you have 3 different ways of completing the project with just the purchase of this one pattern. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're gonna give the project a go. If you do like it, please make sure to give the video a like, and if you are not yet a subscriber to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If you have any questions, please reach out to me in the comment section. You can also always reach me through Facebook or on Instagram, and the fastest way to reach me is directly through Etsy. So if you have a question about any pattern or this particular pattern, just make sure that you tell me which pattern your question is about, and I will try to help you out as soon as I can. Till the next time.